Hello, Jason. It's very nice to have you here today. I would like to ask you a few questions regarding the upcoming course in Dublin, which will be from the 20th to the 22nd of October 2017. So, my first question
Thanks for
would
having me here, Cyril. I appreciate it, and I'm excited to talk about the class.
great, great. So tell me, Jason, who is this course addressed to?
Well, we're going to do a 3 day course there, and two audiences, in fact. I mean, the primary audience really will be people who are familiar with the applied channel theory text and the work of Beijing professor Wang Juyi. So people who've kind of at least read some of the articles or the book that Dr. Wang has worked on. And it'll be a course that's going to kind of go on to some advanced ideas of really trying to get this material into the hands of the practitioner so that they can apply it in their clinic in an everyday way. So that said, we're going to do a first day where we can kind of bring people up to speed. So for people who have not taken a class with Dr. Wang or with any of his other students, we can get some of the basics of channel palpation and diagnosis done in that first day, and then move on in the second and third days to discussing through case studies and other concepts of clinical application of this material, how to use it in your everyday clinic as well.
Mm-hmm. Great, great, that's fantastic. And what I'd like to know first is, why is applied channel theory and palpation, why is it an important pillar of Chinese medicine?
Well, I mean, I'm going to probably have to answer as much as I can by channeling, Dr. Wang in this. And, quoting him, his belief is that, and many of you have probably noticed this, in your study of Chinese medicine, we spend a long time talking about the organs and Zangfu theory and, the functions of those organs, and then acupuncture points or maybe herbal formulas to treat that. And if you think about the texts that we have, they often are putting things in categories of pathology, discussing disease. But there's less of a discussion of physiology. What is the way the body works? What is the normal functioning of the body in the classical model? And so what Dr. Wang's belief is, what he is calling channel theory, is not intricate discussions of the internal pathways of the channels, although he does talk about such things. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's more of channel theory as a way of describing function. And he calls this qi transformation in the channels. In other words, the function of the body when it's normal, so that then we have a living, moving system in our heads, and we can use this system to come up with creative approaches to difficult conditions instead of categories of disease.
Okay.
So channel theory, then, a short answer to your question, is one of the main pillars of Chinese medicine in that it describes normal physiology, while what we often think of as Zangfu theory is more categories of disease. And so they're just kind of two different parts of the clinical experience.
Okay, that's great. And so what interest is there for a Chinese medicine practitioner to use applied channel theory in their practice?
Well, I mean, the short answer is it will help you to get better results. I mean, that's it. I mean, all of us, Dr. Wang included, me included, anyone who's been in practice, and I've, traveled around in China for some years and around the world talking to other practitioners in my teaching. All of us have patients we don't get good results with. Anyone who tells you they always get perfect results is not, speaking from clinical reality, I think. We all have trouble with that. And so this course, to me, gives us some real concrete diagnostic tools and also cognitive tools for helping to figure out the difficult cases where we're not getting good results. I mean, for all of us, the longer you practice, it's chipping away at the edge of the cases where you're not getting results, where the exciting things are and where the real potential for learning is. And so that's what I'm interested in, is trying to teach the clinical reasoning approach that Dr. Wang uses to help figure out the cases where he's not getting results. Because, like all of us, he has that same problem too.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah,
sure.
Actually, I experienced exactly like when I started to use channel examination in my practice. I've noticed an improvement in my results on. Yeah, it's helping a reasoning. Can applied channel theory be used alongside other acupuncture or Chinese medicine styles? Like I'm thinking about tongue acupuncture, which is very popular, or Dr. Tan approach, other styles.
Absolutely. And, before I studied with Dr. Wong, I studied in California and studied with Richard Tan, and I've studied with the Dong style teaching as well. And, what I find is if you take a palpatory approach where you're kind of thinking of the channels before the points, it allows you to focus in more clearly on, all right, if we're going to say this is a Tai Yin or a lung and spleen channel pattern, then you have the points within the Dong system, or you have the points or the approach Richard Tan is saying using the balance system. Either way, if you have kind of Dr. Wong's system of physiology in your head, it brings those approaches to life. In particular, the Dong points. In my experience, in my study of those, often you're overwhelmed by the abundance of point options. There's so many of the Dong points in that system that you're like, well, this is great, but of them, I can't needle all of the different points for, say, a liver disease. So how do you figure out in that patient on that day which of, say, the Dong points are most applicable? Well, I would argue that palpation, for one thing, helps you figure out which channels are most involved, and so therefore it limits the amount of Dong points you can choose and helps you get better results with that approach as well. So it's very applicable to whatever diagnostic and whatever acupuncture approach you use. Adding other diagnostic and cognitive tools to kind of have a flexible system is going to improve your results, in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
And can it be easily integrated into a normal session, or like for someone who has already his own routine? Can they add channel examination easily to their routine?
That is a really common question, Cyril. And I think what maybe one of the misinterpretations about channel palpation that leads to that question is that it is yet one more thing that you do in addition, as in like it takes extra time. What I'm doing, and this is what I definitely want to talk about when I come to Dublin and show in real life, is that what we're doing with the palpation is it becomes part of your asking. All of us have to ask questions of patients in the clinic, looking for that symptom pattern that we're trying to figure out. How's your sleep? How's your digestion? All those kind of bowel movement kind of questions. Palpation for me and Dr. Wong is done during the asking. So what you'll find once you start doing this is by palpating the distal channels below the elbows and knees, which is the main area I want to focus on teaching. In the process of palpating those channels, you find changes in the channels which inspire you to ask certain questions you might not have thought of, or on the other hand, a channel that is relatively unremarkable would then allow you to save time by not going down a questioning line that may not lead results. So in other words, the channel diagnosis to me weaves into the dialogue of asking, and it becomes a two-way dialogue, one with your hands where you're palpating through the channels, another with your mind where you're asking a question. So to me, it even saves time by making the asking part of our diagnosis more efficient.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Sure.
Okay, so let's what my next question? Sorry.
Sure.
So this course will also be for people who already use applied channel theory or channel examination. What will this workshop will bring to them compared to previous courses they can have done before?
Well, Cyril, you and I were just talking about this a little bit as we prepared for this interview. What my work right now is I'm doing a couple of years of research kind of into this concept, which we call in Western medical education, clinical reasoning. So what I'm trying to get into with Dr. Wong and also improve, in the teaching of Dr. Wong's applied channel theory is getting more into Dr. Wong's head. How is it that he collects all these different signs and symptoms and tongue and pulse and palpation and asking and then comes up with a diagnosis? So I want to have students who come to this course be more able to use the type of clinical reasoning that Dr. Wong is using that allows him to make his diagnosis. And I think a really important way we'll do that in Dublin is through case studies. And I mean live case studies.
Right.
I want to be treating at least two or maybe three patients each day, and talking about what we're feeling in the channels and the process that I go through. And this is also, we'll be discussing Dr. Wong's process to come to the diagnosis, the channel we're going to treat, and then the point pair that we'll start with, and then actually doing the treatment as well. So in other words, students who've studied this information before will see it come to life in the clinic. And I think that'll be easier. A lot of students who've read the book and are very interested in Dr. Wong's way of thinking still sometimes have trouble making that leap into their own clinics with this information. And that's what the focus is. Yeah.
Good. And by saying it, they can integrate it better. Okay, so finally, so what if someone who will attend the workshop, what should they expect to bring back from the workshop when they return to their practice?
Well, as I was just saying, and I won't restate this again, the first is some tools for approaching the type of clinical reasoning that Dr. Wong represents, which to me is very much within the thread of classical acupuncture, drawing from the Neijing and Nanjing. So trying to get into the way of thinking that might have been used by early practitioners. That's the first thing. But I think another thing we haven't talked about yet is focusing also on locating points correctly. A whole other thing that practitioners will get is, I want to go through 20 or 30 of the Dr. Wong's most commonly used points and do some hands-on practice on exactly where he's locating those. So another thing that people who've read Dr. Wong's information are very interested in is point pairs. But if we're not locating the points in precisely the way he does it, that also compromises results. So a way of thinking and a way of feeling, I'd say, is what they should be getting out of this. And I mean feeling for points. Okay.
Thank you very much, Jason, and I hope it will inspire people to come to the course and enjoy it.
Yeah, I look forward to being there, and I'm sure Dublin will be a great place to be and get together. And I look forward to students coming and us all discussing any difficulties you're having with applying Dr. Wong's information, because it's an ongoing and a growing process. And Dr. Wong's thinking is changing, and as I've used this in my clinic for the last 15 years, my thinking is changing. So it's always good to get together and compare notes. So I hope to see you all there.
Well, you'll be very welcome, and I'm looking forward to see you in Ireland and in Dublin.
Yeah, and thank you, Cyril, for organizing. That's a lot of work. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye then.